Good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Evans, guest host in for Mike Haney, who has the night off. This evening's show, we have a spectacular, amazing history-making woman in the sports industry. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere, and come right back. Good evening again, and welcome to another edition of 60 Minutes. Good evening again, and welcome to another edition of 60 Minutes in Black America. Thanks again to you, Mike, and this great production team behind me that's making all these possible, which, may I mention, consists of three young, beautiful ladies, Kelly, Jasmine, and Ramisha. I really don't know where to begin with introducing this beautiful, smart, history-making young woman. As I was researching her, my eyes were open even bigger to all what she has accomplished and continue to seek to do more. When you think of sports, we think of the male dominance. But as we speak to my guest this evening, we will see that women have been and continue to be more dominant in the sports industry, whether it's on a basketball court, in the booth, or on a sideline. My guest has been the host of the Warm Up on NBA TV, a TNT NBA reporter, is a renowned journalist, covered the league for almost 2 decades. Throughout her stellar career, she has been a sports analyst, reporter, and a broadcaster, earning a reputation as one of the best in the game. She's a graduate of Coppin State University, a HBCU. She has starred in the collegiate ranks in basketball and volleyball. After her time as a player, she went on to serve as an assistant coach for the men's basketball program at Coppin State, becoming the first female, let me repeat that, the first female to be named a full-time recruiting assistant on an NCAA Division I men's basketball staff. In 2001, she made history again as the first woman, let me repeat that, the first woman to coach a men's professional league team with the Greenville group of the NBA Developmental League. That same year, Ebony magazine named her one of the 56 most intriguing blacks. For over a decade, she worked as a reporter for the Charlotte Hornets, where she became the first full-time female, then let me repeat that, the first full-time female NBA game analyst. And to top all this off, she is a wife and a mother of 2 children. I can go on and on about my guest. Production team, please play this short clip before we bring our guest in.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Reddy. I'm the full-time color analyst for the Charlotte Hornets, lover of basketball.
Production team. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Kathy, you're making me blush over here. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction.
Stephanie, thank you for being here with us this evening. I know you are very busy, but you know what? Well-deserved introduction. And just in case I missed anything, is there anything else you would like to say about yourself to our viewers?
No, ma'am. I think you checked all the boxes.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I know I don't want to keep you long, but I just want to ask you, I want to go back to ask you some questions and, get some little tidbits about Stephanie Reddy.
Absolutely. Whatever you got, I'm ready.
All right. So I want to go back to your pre-days at Coppin State. Now, when you knew you were graduating from Coppin, were you planning to stay to coach?
I was not.
Okay.
That's nobody's ever asked me that.
Oh,
And it's funny because I'm a planner. Like I am a logistic queen. I plan everything out. As you mentioned, I have two children, and they're both very busy. I always joke I need an assistant for my children. So I plan everything, and that was not in my plan to be at Coppin State coaching. I was planning on going to graduate school. I had a job already, not in the sports industry at all, and I got a phone call from Ron Mitchell, who at the time was the athletic director and also the men's basketball head
yes.
coach. And he asked me if I would come back and be the head coach for the volleyball team. That's how it all
Yeah.
started.
That's how it
I
all
just
started.
graduated. So it was the summer that I graduated. And I went back to campus and obviously still had lots of friends that were
Hmm.
students because I had just left like 2 months prior. So that was an interesting transition.
Wow, wow. So my next question is, when you left Coppin, where did you go?
I went to Greenville, South Carolina to coach at the time, it was called the D League, right? The
Okay,
NBA's developmental league. It's now called the G League.
okay.
Um, but I was there the inaugural season. And that's actually a funny story, too. I was an assistant men's basketball coach under Fang Mitchell and the head volleyball coach at the time. And we had a senior who was a really good player on the men's basketball team, a shooting guard. He's
Hmm.
about 6'7". He was an actual pro prospect. So part of my job and role as the assistant coach was to prepare all of his things to get ready to send out to the NBA for NBA teams, kind of like his little scouting package with video and his resume. So I helped compile all of those things. So we got a phone call from the NBA's main office in New York City,
Hmm.
and it was to Fang Mitchell asking permission to speak to me. And we both assumed it was regarding this pro prospect that we had, and they maybe
Uh-huh.
got the packet that I sent and they wanted to follow up on it. And I was floored when I found out it was a job opportunity. They
Wow.
were starting up a new league, a new minor league that was going to be NBA sponsored and run, and it was going to be all in the southeast part of the United States. And they wanted to know if I would be interested in being one of the coaches. Well,
Oh,
yeah,
wow, Steph.
I would be
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I tell people this all the time, especially young people. I had just updated my resume, literally like the day or two before. I know for sure it was
Uh-huh.
that week. So they asked for my resume, and I'm going to date myself with this next statement. I faxed it.
Uh-huh.
But they had it in their possession within the hour because I had just updated it. So I just fired it off right away. And then that started the whole process of me talking to them and interviewing for the job.
Wow, that's great. Wow. So my question to you, how was it coaching a men's team in college in the develop? How was it?
It was an awesome experience. I have been so fortunate. Coaching is one of those professions that generally the head coaches will hire people to be their assistants that they trust, that they know, or that have come highly recommended from someone that they trust, right? You just
Mhm.
don't randomly get coaching jobs. So when I work with Fang Mitchell at Coppin, he did a really good job of allowing me to coach, meaning he gave me responsibilities. At
Mhm.
that time, and I don't know what the rules are now because it's been a long time since I was a college coach, but at that time, there were strict rules about individual workouts that she could do with the guys during the season and during the off season. There was a certain number of hours that you couldn't go over, a certain number of players that you couldn't have in the gym at the same time, right? Because they didn't want you to have a full practice. So it was
Right.
like two or three guys at once, and only, I think, 2 hours a week total. Well, he put me in charge of that. And it was such a smart thing to do, not only because it made me actually get out there and get to do basketball stuff, which is obviously where I'm comfortable, but it
Mm-hmm.
made the guys start to trust me because coaching requires trust. They're
Yes.
not going to follow instruction if they don't believe in you. If they
Mm-hmm.
don't think you know what you're talking about, they're going to just blow you off. And that's in any sport with any gender, right? It's not male specific.
Right. Right.
So by him putting me in that position where I ran those individual workouts before the season even started, by the time we were going and full practicing in games, all those guys knew I knew my stuff. They trusted me. They knew that I just wanted them to get better, that my job was to help develop them as players and help them grow. And that really fostered a great relationship between myself and the team. And then it just made my job so much easier. And a similar thing happened. And I think because Coach Milton Barnes in Greenville had talked to Fang about our
Uh-huh.
experience. And so he similarly gave me responsibilities very early on with those guys. And we had an amazing time. We ended up winning the championship that first season in the D League.
Wow, great. So, how did you handle going into the locker room with them dressing? How did you handle the
Yeah.
locker room?
So we had a system, and
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because people ask this question a lot, and I get it. But there are so many men that coach women in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sports. Like we
Yes.
could run down the list: soccer, softball, basketball, almost every sport. There are men coaching women at all levels: high school, college, pros. I doubt they get asked that question, but I'm happy to answer it for you, Kathy, because I know people at home want to know. We had a system, right? I would knock, obviously. I don't just walk in. And
Mm-hmm.
there's certain times before the game, halftime, post game, where I know they're dressed, right?
Right.
Halftime, they know I'm coming in at halftime. So, hello, if you got to get something done, take it in the actual bathroom, not the locker room. I
Correct.
would always do like the quick knock out
Uh-huh.
of courtesy, even if it was a time when they were expecting me, like for our pregame chat. And sometimes I would come in even earlier than the head coach because I might have to put stuff on the board or I might have to remind players of a certain thing. So I do like the quick, like a quick,
Uh-huh.
but still coming in at the same time. And there was one time where I did the quick knock and tried to walk in, and you would have thought that a tornado was coming through the room because you heard everybody, no, coach, wait a minute, wait. And so I stopped.
Uh-huh.
And then they were like, okay, you can come in now. So I come in. This was when I was coaching in the G League in Greenville. We were on the road. And I walked in and I said, is everybody okay? And, then, and they were all laughing. They're like, coach, we just didn't want you to get blinded. Because there was a guy in there that was undressed and he was like a
Uh-huh.
very large man, overweight, so they
Uh-huh.
were like clowning him more so than clowning me. It was pretty funny. But yes, we didn't have any issues with me in the locker
Awesome. So my next question before I get into my really deep questions, how did
room.
they take you as being a female when you first came on board? Was there any pushback from the players?
There was not. And like I said, Fang Mitchell did a great job with that transition period when I was at Coppin State.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, both places where I was coaching the men, they were so protective of me, even though I was the um, authority figure, right? I was the
Mm-hmm. Right.
assistant coach. But because we were so close in age, because I started coaching immediately after college. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time I got to the D League, some of those guys were older than me, the pro guys. We were so close in age. I was like their sister, I was
Yeah.
kind of like an auntie, I guess, kind of like mom figure, sister. We were really, really close. They trusted me. And there were a few instances where outsiders might try to be disrespectful.
Right.
And before I could even say anything to respond, they would jump right in. I mean, whether it was the airport or a restaurant, because I would
Oh,
be the
that's
only
great.
woman sometimes in our travel
Yes.
party. And they would be like, oh, that must be a cheerleader over there. And I would turn around to address it,
Uh-huh.
and somebody would jump up. That's our coach, like mad. They
Wow.
were
That's
awesome. I
great.
never had any issues with any of those guys. In fact, I'm still pretty close with a couple of the guys from our
Uh-huh.
D League championship team. We're still in touch, and they're coaching now. So it's pretty awesome.
That's good. See,
Yeah.
awesome. Good job, Steph. Thank you. So, one of your accomplishments was being listed as Ebony's the 56 most intriguing blacks of 2021.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. So, how did you feel being on this list with names such as Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and Shaquille O'Neal?
Yeah, it was amazing. I was so young back then. Um, and everything happened so fast for me. that it was almost surreal, like it was like I kept getting these opportunities one after another, and they were all amazing. And then when I started getting that media coverage and people were putting me on lists, I kept thinking, like, is this me? Like you just don't think, like, as a kid growing up, that you're ever going to be featured in a magazine that you read on a regular basis. Like
Yes.
it was surreal. And I gotta say, now that I'm a parent, I understand more what my parents were experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
because they were so proud,
Yeah.
and I thought they were a little over the top, but I get it now. I get it.
Yeah,
Because
you get
I'm
it.
a little over the top with my little ones. They haven't even done anything real yet.
And you're supposed to be over the top with your little ones. And I've been there, so I get it.
Right.
So what do you think is the reason you were included on that list? In other words, what makes you intriguing?
Oof. Great question, Kathy. I think it was the whole gender thing. I think being a woman in the man's world, but specifically coaching,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was intriguing because it had not been done up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
It was a new idea. And for some people, it was a crazy idea, So I think
Right.
that was what made it intriguing. And I think the fact that I was a woman, I was younger, and I was African American, it was like, oh, all of these things that normally are negatives when you're trying to go out and get a job,
Uh-huh.
I had all those things. So that probably was intriguing too. Like, how did she get that job? Like what does she offer that makes her qualified? And I think just all of the basketball knowledge that I've had over the years, and all of the mentors that I had that were willing to help me and teach me and help me
Mm-hmm.
grow professionally, all of that played a huge part. And I've just been so blessed. I've been so blessed.
Yes. And just to go back on Fang, and just so you know, I was trying to find him to surprise you, but I couldn't.
Oh, he's
I
my
couldn't get it,
favorite.
but I couldn't reach him. So, do you
He's a little
still? Are you?
redneck thing, Mitchell.
Yeah. So my next question is, becoming the first of anything is followed by a sense of pressure that occurs with the title now. You were the first female coach of a men's professional league team in 2001, and the first female to hold a full-time game analyst position with an NBA team. What type of pressure did you encounter being the first?
Um, it was a unique kind of pressure, right? Because
Uh-huh.
it hadn't been done before. So what were the expectations? For
Hmm.
me, they were very high, because I've always held myself to a high standard. I've always been my worst critic when I was an athlete, as a
Hmm.
coach, as a mom, even,
Yeah.
So the pressure was there just innately in me. Um, I do feel that being a woman, there is added pressure when you're in the limelight, when you're in the public eye, because people are not just critiquing my knowledge of X's and O's, my ability to teach basketball, my ability to communicate. They're judging me on my appearance. And
Uh-huh.
I think that's a different level of criticism that men don't face. So I had to be concerned about what my hair looked like, how I was dressed, were my shoes okay? Like all of those things on top of preparing and
Yeah.
coaching in a basketball game.
Yes.
And I don't
Hmm.
think that gets talked about enough. I think women have an extra layer of preparedness that is necessary to be successful in today's society. And yes, it adds more pressure. It makes it more challenging, certainly.
Yes, I think you might have touched a little bit on this. So was this pressure self-imposed or did it come from outside sources? So you pretty much
Yeah,
covered that question.
it did. It did come from inside. But you know, the pressure too is also like, if I mess this up, is
Mm.
anybody else going to get a chance? That
Wow.
would go through my head. So
Wow.
yes, that's like an exponential amount of pressure. Like I can't mess this up.
And not only, I guess you're thinking that way, it's not only going to, if you mess this up, not only just for another woman, but for another African American woman.
Right, exactly. Specifically. Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Mm.
very much.
Wow. Wow. So How did you prepare yourself to be the first? Since you were so hard on yourself, how did you prepare yourself to become the first?
I was always prepared, always. Everything I did, very organized, very thorough. Um, I would not accept less than from myself, right? So there was never an opportunity for my boss to question, well, where's this? Or I need more of X. I always overdid it. Like even to this day, my husband, the kids, Mom, you're so extra. Yeah, yeah, I am. But
You deserve to be extra.
that's how I got there
That's where
though,
you are.
right? Like
That's
being
right.
extra, what the kids call, and now there's a whole phrase, like a terminology which I can't stand, but the kids, they call each other tryhards. Oh, he's such a tryhard. What? Like it's a negative thing. You know
Back
what
on
I
the,
mean?
yes,
So yeah, I'm that person.
I can try hard.
Yeah.
So, an Emmy Award represents excellence. Do you think having the title Emmy Award winner has held an impact on your success?
Ooh, that's I don't know if it's impacted. You know what? I think it has. First of all, that's like one of my most proud things because
And I'm
it's
just
like
smiling because I'm so proud of you. So
it
I'm just going to tease at you through this whole interview.
it is because it's recognizable. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like one
Yes.
of those things that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, what industry you're in, everybody knows what that is. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So that was a huge deal for me, and I never thought I would get one ever. I just didn't think it was possible. And when I found out that we won that, I was transitioning to the Warner Brother Discovery family, the TNT NBA TV family, and I happened to be sitting next to my boss. We were on our way to this like meeting during All-Star weekend, and I told her, "We just won an Emmy." And she was so excited for me. She'd already
Uh-huh.
won several, of course, it was like no big deal to her,
Right.
but she understood what it represented. So you're right. It may very well have impacted my relationship with her and the network moving forward.
Yeah.
But it certainly impacted me greatly. Like
Yeah.
I am very proud of that Emmy Award.
You're just so organized and everything in order, and you're just sometimes answering my next question. So
Sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. Because my next question was, how did you feel about winning the award?
Yes, I was giddy. I was giddy, like giggling like a little schoolgirl. My husband Perry was probably as giddy as I was, because he sacrifices too. We're a
Hmm.
family, and he's
Yeah.
he's basically a single dad during the NBA season. Taking both
Hmm.
our kids to practice, to games, to lessons, to whatever it is, because I'm on the road.
Hmm.
So he plays a huge part in that, and he knows that. So
Yes.
um, we were both very excited. In fact, I think he may have told more people than I told.
That's what he's supposed to do, Steph.
I know. So,
So, have you reached the goal you've set for yourself?
ooh, yes, yes, and no, right? Like,
Okay.
okay, so as I told you, I'm a planner, so I always make lists and I have like these yearly projections for myself, the whole 5-year plan thing. And I will say that my initial couple of 5-year plans have not come to fruition at all, and that ship has sailed. I'm not going to go to law school to become a lawyer. I'm not going to get my PhD. Like those things are done, right?
Right.
Um, but when I got into television, one of my goals was to do my exact job that I'm doing now. Sideline reporting
Amazing.
for the NBA on TNT.
Amazing.
That
Amazing.
was my goal. That was the top of the mountain where I wanted to be because it's the game that I love at the highest level, the
Yes.
NBA. That's the
Yes.
best basketball in the world, right?
Yes. Right.
It is on national television on
Television.
TNT. So it's a
Yes.
huge platform, but most importantly, it's the best coverage. And of course, I know I'm biased,
It's
but
okay. You can be
TNT
biased.
TNT has the best NBA coverage of all the networks by far. Like they always that bunch with Ernie and Chuck and Shaq and
Talk,
Kenny.
oh, and I want to talk about them, but go ahead.
And I
Yes.
would love to talk about them. They're the best. And they win Emmy after Emmy after Emmy. Like, and that's not by coincidence. So to be a part of that show, like when they ask me to come on before one of the games that I'm working and be on their show to give them an update on the game that I'm working, that's like the highlight of my week. So yes, I've reached that goal. I wanted to also start working as a play-by-play person, which is newer for me because I started off in the business as an analyst because I was a coach and a
Uh-huh.
player, and then transitioned to sideline reporting, and then transitioned to hosting sometimes, and I do a lot of hosting now. But play-by-play was always like a long-term goal for me because that is the captain of the ship. When you do a live broadcast in sports, the
Hmm.
play-by-play is the captain of the ship. And
Yeah.
so my time at TNT, they have afforded me the opportunity to do play-by-play from time to time on both NBA TV and on TNT. We have some
Hmm.
HBCU legacy games that we put on TNT. It's become an annual tradition, and I've done play-by-play the
Awesome.
last 2 years.
Great.
At All-Star Weekend, they allowed me to do play-by-play for the G League game or for the another HBCU game. And actually, coming up this month in July, I'll be out in Summer League, the NBA Summer League in Vegas, and I'll be
Mhm.
doing play-by-play for those games. So it's been amazing. I love where I work. I
That's
love that
great.
they encourage me to grow, right? They just don't put me in a box.
Fox.
I love
That's
it.
great. That's good. That's good. And that's great when you love what you do.
Yes,
But I
yes.
just have to ask this question because Barkley is off the chain. How do you not be rolling on the court with Barkley?
Oh, we
And
laugh. We all laugh. We do. And when we hear them in our ear, like pregame, like leading up to
uh-huh.
our game, we're almost always laughing hysterically. And there are times when they have me on to like give my report
Uh-huh.
where they'll say
Yeah.
something back to me or ask a question and I kind of giggle because they're funny.
They are hilarious.
And they're like that in real life. Like when I'm in the studio at the same time as them, or we're in the makeup room at the same time because I might be working on another show, they are as funny as they are on TV in real life. And they are so nice. Everyone on that set, all four of those guys, the
Uh-huh.
nicest human beings. Like super nice
Wow.
guys, always looking out for everybody. I mean, I don't get to see them very much because I'm often, at the game when
Hmm.
they're in the studio, but sometimes I am there at the same time as them. They're always asking how my family is, like just
Oh,
really good guys, really good guys. I'm so
wow.
lucky.
They keep me in stitches. I'd be
Yeah,
rolling because I'm like, Barkley is a better commentator, as far as I'm concerned, than he was a player because he is hilarious. It just cracks me up.
he is
So
very funny.
yeah. So my next question to you is, what is your take on how women now have become more at the forefront of the sports world, and is it long overdue?
Yes, yes, it is. The short answer is yes, it is long overdue. I have been very excited to see the growth in representation for women in sports in general,
Yeah.
but specifically in my industry, in media, it has increased and improved, right? And I love
Hmm.
it. You can turn on sports on any network,
Hmm.
and almost all of them you will find representation, and not just in the traditional role for women as they see it, which is like on the sideline holding a microphone, which don't I'm not disparaging it because that's what I do. But they would limit us to that is what I'm getting at. And now you're seeing more women at the desk hosting shows, being analysts, doing play by play. I mean, we've got Beth Mowens and um, Holly Rowe and all sorts of women who are doing play by play for men's games. Tiffany Green, who does a lot of football
Yeah.
and softball, but she does football too, play by play. She's amazing. Like, and I am loving seeing it. I think there is still room for more, obviously.
Right.
But comparing where we were a decade ago, at least we're going in the right direction.
Well, yep. Yes, we are. So, how do you feel the NBA is progressing in terms of their diversity efforts?
I think they are progressing.
Hmm.
I think that the NBA has always done a really good job with racial diversity. They make a point to do that. They I cannot remember the name of the organization, and I feel bad for this, but they do those racial report cards every year where they
Hmm.
look at all of the different professional sports leagues and they give them grades for things. The NBA always gets the highest grades of all the major professional sports in this country. I think they're doing a better job now in terms of gender diversity. We are seeing more and more NBA teams have women, not just as assistant coaches, but in the front office. And I don't mean human resources or marketing. I mean in basketball operations, vice presidents of BB Ops, assistant general managers, like real basketball roles. We're seeing that happen more and more, and I'm loving it.
Oh, that's great. That is so good to hear. So speaking of the NBA, what do you think about the disparity between the NBA and the WNBA as far as salary gaps? So, production team, can you just show this chart up real quick? So it might be a little blurry, but I'm going to read some numbers out. The NBA's revenue is about 10 billion, and these are like 2020 numbers. Okay. So bear with me. And WNBA is 60 million. So, and the average salary for the NBA players is like 9.6 million, where the WNBA is like 102,751. And I'm just going to read, since you can see this. The highest paid player in the NBA right now is Stephen Curry. And right now, that was last year. So right now, he's making about 51 million. And in the WNBA is Jewel Lloyd. She's with the Seattle Storm, I believe. And right now, she and two other players are the highest player, making $228,094. And then you look at the viewership. The NBA Finals runs about 12.4 million, and in the 2022 WNBA, 412,000 viewers. And then the attendance for the NBA is 17,184. WNBA is 5,679. So I guess my question to you is I guess am I wrong? Correct me. Is it the attendance and the TV ratings? Is that what gives, I guess, the league the money, and that makes the disparity of what someone is making as far as NBA and the WNBA?
Yes, I was going to say, I think it's certainly those things, right? Television revenue is the biggest moneymaker for all the leagues. It just is. And so it depends on what the networks are willing to pay to have the rights to air the games. You're about to see a tremendously large number for the NBA when they do these new deals in the next couple of years with the networks. And that factors into the amount of money that each team makes, which then filters down to salary numbers. Attendance obviously helps too, because that's a moneymaker as well for each individual team. I think the problem that we have when you hear WNBA players and fans talk about the disparity and the differences, it's not, at least I don't think, from my perspective, I'll just speak for myself. I'm not really worried about dollar for dollar, right? Because we're not there yet. I think that the networks can help, because it's that old saying from the movie, if you build it, they will come, right? We're seeing it happen with softball right now. ESPN decided they were going to put more college softball games on TV. And what happened? Oh, people started watching them. And they started loving them. And they started.
I love college softball. Yes.
Right.
I love it.
But it was never on the air before. So the networks didn't know that people liked it. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Well, now they're understanding that, and they're putting more and more into it. And now they're showing professional softball in the summer with Athletes Unlimited. So it just grows and grows and grows, but you have to put the initial investment in place to see it start to blossom and grow. So now that that's happening, you'll start to see salaries pick up a little bit. But I think the main concern is how the players as a whole are treated, right? Their travel, their accommodations, all those things that maybe are not going to show up in their salary twice a month, but that impact how they feel, how they can recover, how they can perform. I think that's where a lot of WNBA players wanted more, and they're starting to get a little bit more now.
So is there anything more that the WNBA can do to close the salary gap, or does it just go back to it all based on the attendance and the TV? Is that
there's always, it boils down to that, because the money has to come from some place, right? It's not just going to appear. Now, and that also goes back to ownership. How much do you want to invest in your team? And the WNBA, they've got strict rules about what the owners can do because they're trying to keep the league balanced and fair.
Mm-hmm.
So if one team has a private jet, but the other teams don't, then the league is going to step in and say, oh, no, no, you can't use your private jet. That's
Okay.
not fair. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's what the players are talking about. Like, we have access to one. It's not our fault that these other 8, 12 owners don't want to do that. That's on
Right.
them. But we shouldn't have to suffer. So I think that's where you're starting to find like, okay, we need to figure this out because the NBA started the same way. Not everybody, they flew commercial for a long time. And
Right.
then team by team, they started investing in getting these private jets, understanding the advantage of flying someplace the night before, getting a good night's rest, and then playing. So I think you'll start to see the WNBA will start to evolve that same way.
Now, when you say we'll start to see it, do you have like do you estimate of what how long that may be?
No, I mean I think when they have the collective bargaining agreements,
Okay.
it's all put in there. So
Okay.
whenever they end and they start to renegotiate all of these terms, that's when the next window is for advancement, you know?
Right. Okay. Okay. So I have a question in a scenario. So I guess you remember Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
Yes.
My opinion, I think they were the ones who sparked that viewership boom for the NBA. So should the WNBA do the same? How about can't they start marketing? Let's say Angel Reese. Technically, right
Yeah.
now, I know she's probably a rising junior. Because of the
Right.
transfer rules, she can still be just a junior. And Caitlin Clark, and they can be that next Magic and Bird combination, and that could raise that market value for the NBA to get more people to tune in and make that money for the league and that
Yeah.
viewership.
Yeah.
So is that a possibility of something that they can do, or is there something
Yeah.
else that?
Yeah, that could definitely work. And I think you're starting to see that too. I mean, you brought up Angel Reese. She's killing it right now with her NIL deals. I mean,
Oh yes.
she gets a lot of money and product and she's growing, right? She's becoming a brand. Um, I think that definitely works. And I think too, because again, it goes back to exposure. If it's not on TV, then how are they supposed to watch it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you have a whole younger generation of sports fans who are being exposed to women's sports at an earlier age and more often. And so it's becoming just normal. It's not
Right.
weird. It's not unique. Oh, there's a women's game on. No, there's always a women's game on, right? Like, so
Right.
it's like a gradual process. It's a little slower than we'd like it, but I do believe
Yeah.
it's happening.
Yeah. And speaking, and I'm just going to Angel. She's making more money now, Steph,
Oh, yeah.
than she'll make in the WNBA.
Yes. And there have been a couple of players who have come out and publicly stated as much. Like, oh, I'm not leaving early. I'm in no rush to get there. I'm making a
And
lot of money
I
now.
believe she is going to do the same. I don't think she's going to rush to
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah. Why
Yeah.
would she?
Yeah. Why would?
Especially if
Yeah.
she keeps winning national championships. I mean, that's the goal, right?
And that's the goal. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So my next question to you: when will we see a women's head coach in the NBA?
Oof. Ooh, I don't know. Hmm.
Do you?
I don't know. I mean, I think that there are plenty of people that are capable of doing it and being
Mhm.
successful. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that.
Right.
I just don't know which team is going to do it first.
How,
And it goes back to what I said to you earlier in this conversation. Coaching is one of those professions that you hire people that you know and trust. So
mhm.
we're in the infancy stages of that developing because we've got women sitting on the benches now. We've got women in the basketball operations offices now. So now they'll start to hire more women because they know and
Mhm.
trust them. And they'll
Yes.
start to graduate their way through the ranks, right? Like there's an evolution of it. It's the same thing that happened with race. Who was going to be the first head African American coach in all the sports, right? They
Right.
had to
Right.
pay their dues, work
Dude.
their way up, switch
Mhm.
teams to prove that it wasn't just because this person was taking care of me, but I actually knew what I was doing. Like, there's a whole process.
Yeah.
Um, that will have to happen. And the good news is, Kathy, at least we're on our way.
But
Like
we're
it
on
has
our way.
started, right? So at least we
Yes,
can see it happening. I just
yes.
don't know when.
Just on it. Okay. Now, would you like to coach in the NBA or WNBA? And if so, which one would you prefer?
Ooh, I would not.
Oh, okay.
I would not. I loved coaching when I was doing it.
And that
Uh,
you're just so organized. And that was my next question. Do you miss coaching? Go for it.
I kind of do miss it sometimes, right?
Uh-huh.
You miss having your own locker room, because it's like a family, you know? So when I was with the Hornets for over a decade, I knew all those guys and coaches, and it was kind of like a family. I traveled with the team, but it wasn't my locker room. I was still a guest. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
As nice and accommodating as all those guys were, I was still a guest. So it's different. I do not want to coach anymore because my lifestyle just is not
Okay.
for that. I've got two children. As I said, they're so busy. I'm always trying to catch their games and all of their things. So coaching is not conducive for that. Um, it comes up every once in a while. My phone will ring and somebody will ask me if I'm interested in joining their staff or talking to them about an opportunity. And I just cut them right off. No, thanks. Like,
Wow.
it's
Wow.
not where I am right now. And I'm not saying I won't ever get back to that place.
Yes.
It's just not where I am right now.
Wow. Wow. My last basketball question, because I'm halfway over the point, halfway mark. Thanks, production team, for bearing with me, because I didn't want to stop the NBA questions. But my last question for NBA, and then I got to make a brief announcement. Am I allowed to ask you who your favorite basketball player is? And it can be past, present, or both.
Whoa, I'm not supposed to have a favorite, right? I'm like a
Okay.
mom with I love all my kids. You're not supposed to have a favorite. Um, I can list you several. I'll do
Okay.
that.
I'll take that.
Okay. So obviously Michael Jordan, he's the GOAT.
My
I've been
favorite.
lucky enough to actually work with him when I was with the Hornets, right? So I
Right?
got to not saying that we're like best friends, but I could have a conversation with him from time to time. I kind of got to know him a little bit better than just like a poster on the wall, right?
Right.
Great guy. So he's on my list. When I was a player, my favorite player was Penny Hardaway.
Um,
I
Orlando
loved
Magic.
Penny Hardaway because he could do everything. He was
Hmm.
so versatile. He was so athletic. He was so smart. His basketball
Yeah.
IQ. I loved Penny Hardaway. He was by far my favorite player when I was a player. Um, when I switched to working games and, broadcasting and being a reporter, Kemba Walker was one of my
Uh-huh.
favorites with the Hornets. I Marvin
Right.
Williams was one of my favorites. Um, and I hate to start naming them because there were so many good guys that played for the
Yeah, I
Hornets
know.
that I
Yes.
really enjoyed. Nazi Muhammad was one of my favorites. I liked the guys who were open to a conversation, who wouldn't just give me like the canned company answer, the one liner that you're going to give to
Yes.
everybody. Like, let's actually have a conversation and tell me something that maybe people don't know about you, or
Right.
be vulnerable with yourself because you trust me. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean. Yes.
So that's what I like.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a real commercial break. Don't go anywhere, Steph. And I just want to let you know we're at our halfway point through the show, way past my halfway point, but this has been a great conversation. Thank you, Steph. I just want to let everyone know that Mike will return next week with special guests on his topic will be As the World Turns, Part 2. And he will be discussing Bidenomics, the Supreme Court decisions, and whether it's time to rally for a constitutional rewrite in America. So make sure you tune on these same platforms at 6 p.m. on July 7th. So can you please bring Steph back in for me, production team, so we can wrap it up with her? So before I go into my next set of stuff, I want to share, and this little clip will help me bring my next section in. Production team, can you show this clip when Stephanie was her last night at the Hornets?
Oh.
I want to say thank you to the thousands of Hornet and NBA fans who have always been there for me, who have supported me and supported your team, and you've been nothing but positive and encouraging, and I love you guys for that, and I appreciate it deeply, more than you'll ever know. And all of these relationships that I've talked about, that's been a bonus for me, because I have always loved this game. It's been my first true love. So the relationships that I've built up over the time have been just an added bonus to me. But my most important relationships, obviously, are my family. My husband, my best friend, my field producer, my #1 fan, Perry, our children, James and Ivy, my father and my mother-in-law. I would not be able to do this and continue to chase my dream without their continued support. So I have to thank them. I love you guys so much for always being there for me when I've got to dart all around the country.
Oh my.
Man, that was the ugly cry. That was
No, it was. But how did Michael Jordan feel when you came to him and said you were leaving?
He's like, what? Why? Like, people are like, what's happening? But everyone was so nice and gracious and understood. They understood. I'd been there
Yes,
so long, and the opportunity to go to TNT, as I told you earlier in this
yes.
conversation, had been a dream of mine. Who is going to turn that down? And I will say this, though. The job was not TNT. When I left the
Oh,
Hornets, it was to do NBA TV things and Yahoo collaboration things online, but I was betting on myself because I was going to get in the door with them, join the family, make them see how valuable I was, and then work my way over to TNT. And that's exactly what I did.
yeah, because in that clip, I know you were telling them that you knew what you were getting ready to do, but you could not announce it.
Right. Yep. I was going to do virtual reality games
Mm-hmm.
for TNT. So that was the big coup, right? I was on TNT, but it was the VR games, not the linear television games. So I was in the family, but not exactly where I wanted to be yet, right?
So how long did you get when you got in TNT that you got where you are?
Probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years. I would do like TNT sideline during the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs, right?
Right,
Like fill
right.
in, or
Uh-huh.
from time to time I would host on NBA TV for their game time show. Um, but it was probably the 4th year was when I was like full on TNT and some NBA TV still. I still do NBA TV,
Agree.
but
Yeah.
TNT sideline. Yep.
Wow. So I know we're starting to wrap up, and I know I want to get you back to the Ivy's game, her tryouts. As a wife and a mother and career woman, how do you balance all of your roles?
Oof. I have a great partner. I mean, you just heard that clip where I was talking about Perry, my husband, my best friend. It's impossible to do. I don't know
Hmm.
how single parents do it. I really don't. I tell people all the time, and my friends remind me, they call him Saint Perry. Like he is the rock. I can't get on a plane and fly all around the country to do games every single week if I don't have him, because who would I trust with my children, right? That
Right,
much.
right.
It's not like just hiring a babysitter. I'm gone overnight for consecutive days. And then when the playoffs start, I'm gone for consecutive weeks at a time. So if it weren't for him, there's no way I could do this. I mean, no, like it's not possible. So that's how you do it. You find the right partner. That is key.
See, right partner. Okay, you ready for this one, Steph?
I hope so.
Do you ever have mommy guilt?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Hmm.
Yes, I do. All the time. All the time. I think people who say they don't, then sorry, they're not doing it right,
Yeah,
because that means you don't care enough,
that's
not
right.
judging anybody, but Jesus, yes, I have it all the time.
Time.
Some advice that one of my best friends gave me has helped me in the recent years, and because she's works a lot too, and she said the key is you have to be present where you are.
Hmm.
Meaning, when I'm at work on the road, I have to fully be present there. When I'm
Hmm.
home with the kids, be fully present with the kids. right?
Yes.
Of course, there's
Right.
going to be some overlap, right? It's the day and
Right.
age we're in.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
phone, you're emailing, texting, whatever. But be fully present. They have to know that you're there, not just to drop them off and do work in the car, which sometimes we all have to do,
Oh,
but
yes.
that you're vested in what they're doing, right? That you
Right.
care about what they care about. You're
Right.
listening to them when they're talking. You're not just only yelling and barking orders, right? So
Right.
yes, it's hard, and I do have guilt, but I try my best to deal with it.
Yes.
When I were younger, I used to do like elaborate birthday parties. That was how I dealt with it.
And that means they didn't even miss you. You had the birthday party. So, like, how do you manage to keeping your children out of the prime light? And I know you mention their names all the time, and
Yep.
there's never enough photos of them,
Nope.
which is great. So, how do you keep them out of the prime light?
I make a concerted effort. I don't publish photographs of my
Mhm.
children. I don't ever
Perfect.
post anything on social media that
Hmm.
have my children. There have been two photos that I've posted on social media that show my children. One was with Halloween costumes with the mask over their faces.
Uh-huh.
The other one was they were in a pile of leaves that they were raking leaves with Perry, and they had on jockey goggles, like horse jockey goggles, so you couldn't see them anyway. I believe that, they're entitled to their own lives. I have friends who post everything about their kids. I have celebrity friends who post everything about their kids,
Wow.
and that's to each their own. But
Yes.
I feel like, and my kids are getting older now.
Yes. Hmm.
My son is going to be in high school. My daughter's in middle school right now. They're going to want their own social media presence. They don't want friends and strangers walking up to them talking about poopy diaper stories or whatever
Right.
it is that you posted last week. You know what I mean?
Right. I
I
know
want them
exactly
to
what you
have
mean.
their
Yes.
own identity.
Yes. Yes.
And most importantly, when they were really little, I just don't trust people that much.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to walk into Starbucks and see my kid and recognize them and be able to say anything to them or take them home with them that would make them comfortable, because I've posted all of our business online. So now any predator can walk up to my child and be like, oh, I know your mom. And then give a series of evidence, like the name of our dog and where my mom is and all those
Right.
things to make my kid feel comfortable to go with this stranger who might be a predator. I don't want to give anybody any ammunition. And I don't care if people call me paranoid or crazy, but they're
No,
my
that's not
two.
the.
So
Yep.
I do what I feel is right to protect them.
That's
And
true.
up to this point, we've had no instances.
Yes, that is great. Great. So, how did they react when they were little, seeing mommy on TV compared to now? They're used to seeing you on TV.
Right. Yeah, they could care less right now. They're hilarious.
They're high school and middle school. They could care
Yeah,
less. Oh,
they
it's
could
just
care
mommy
less.
again, right?
Yes. And I think when they were really little, I think they thought everybody's parents were on TV because that's all they knew. So, like, when mommy went to work, they could just turn the TV on and see mommy. So
Uh-huh.
I think they thought that when their friends' parents went to work, they just turn the TV on. Like, your mom's gonna be in there. Just turn the TV on. And then at one point I remember James thought I worked at the airport, because they would be like,
Uh-huh.
oh, we're taking mommy to work, and they would drop me off at the airport because I
Uh-huh.
was getting on a plane, but he was so little, he was like, oh, she works at the airport?
Oh, wow, that is so great. And do they like sports like mommy?
They love softball and baseball.
Awesome.
They used to run track. They used to do karate. My daughter's picking up volleyball, but
Good.
there is not a basketball player in the bunch, I'm sad to say.
Really?
They do not have any interest in basketball whatsoever.
Wow, that's
In fact,
amazing.
they know nothing about it. Like they can't even talk about it. Like they
You know
know
what?
very
I think
little.
that's a good thing.
And I always joke with them. I'm like, you're an embarrassment, like, because they know nothing about basketball. I'm like, who raised you?
Well, I know you're very busy, so I'm going to get ready to let you go. So I have a question. What advice would you give to a young woman trying to make it in a male-dominant arena?
Oof, there's a few things. Number one, you got to be true to yourself. You have to. You can't try to be like someone else. You can't try to be what you think someone else wants, because that's never going to work. And if it does, it's not going to last. You've got to work very, very hard, like really hard. You've got to be over prepared. You have to be organized, and please be a nice person. Just
Hmm.
treat people the
Yes.
way that you want to be treated.
And I always tell people, it just pays to be nice to people.
Yep, that's right.
It just
That's
pays to be
right.
nice.
It
Yes.
does.
Yeah, so before we close, is there anything else you would like to say to some young African American girl who want to follow into your footsteps or even just becoming a sports broadcaster?
I say, go get them, girl. Do your thing, right? Work hard, set a goal, achieve the goal, set another goal, achieve the goal, set another goal. Like, don't stop. And if it's something you want to do, don't let anybody talk you out of it.
Stephanie, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, and I love you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I love you too.
All right, good night. I would like to leave an encouraging word of advice for women wanting to get into sports from, of course, our guest, Stephanie Reddy's 2018 interview. Production team, can you place this on the screen for me, please? I will go ahead and read this. Not to let people say you can't do it, even if you don't see someone doing it. You can be the first, and there's nothing wrong with that. Think outside the box. Don't let anyone limit what you think your goals should be. Think as big as you possibly can. And of course, the key component to anything in life is hard work. You have to work hard. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm Kat Evans, and I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And thanks again for watching this edition of 60 Minutes in Black America. Have a good night.